All right, and welcome back to Pellet Tech 101. We're continuing our focus today on the Harman feed system. And this video is going to highlight replacement of the Harman auger feed shaft. So we've run into situations in the past where there's an issue with that shaft or with the bearing that's attached to the shaft. Maybe it's a high squeal or a whine that's coming from it, or simply there's slop that's being created within that auger shaft where it needs replacement. So we're going to basically go over the steps here on how we pull out that auger shaft and how we put the new one in. As you can see, I already have the auger motor pulled out of the way here, so the auger motor has to be off first as we get in there to access that, and we're going to get rolling here with it. So once I have the auger motor off, I also do want to pull off this sawdust clean out cover box, because as we move this arm over, we need to be able to allow room for that arm to swing that slide plate wide open, and I'll show you that in just a second. So we want to have our cover plate off. For tools right here, I have obviously a pretty long extension right here on a 1/2-inch socket, just with a small 3/8 ratchet there. I also have a 1/2-inch wrench, that a lot of times can be useful. And then I have a channel locks, just in case we need that to physically wiggle the auger loose once we have all the mounts off. So after I've got the sawdust clean out cover off, next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the retainer right here that's essentially our set screw holding our auger in place. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull that off. That's going to be a 7/16. So we also will need a 7/16 wrench just to pull off I call it the set screw or the clamp that's holding the auger motor in place. And as soon as we have that out of the hole, that's going to come off like so. Important to note that the bearing side goes in. So we're going to make a mental note of that as we put the new the auger shaft in there. We know how to put that back on properly. Essentially, this bolt is threading right through the auger shaft right here. I'm just going to set that off to the side. Now with that, and with our sawdust cleanout box open, you'll see that I'm able to take this arm and I'm able to lift that fully up. So I can really expose the auger shaft and the mount right here. So I can really get to these two primary bolts here and here that are holding this this mount bracket plate for the auger shaft. So with that swung open, we're going to grab our 1/2-inch socket and we're going to loosen these up. Now, depending on the make, the model, the year, there's some different generations here, so there may be some slight variances. These ones basically have push plugs that they're threading into. So I have to hold my back finger right there to fully take those out and make sure that those don't fall out of place. So they're kind of female retainers that are in place right there. Some of them will have those welded in or soldered in place there. But this one right here, they are loose. So we want to make sure that we're able to unthread properly and that those don't fall out when we are putting the new one back here. So this one's located right in the sawdust cleanout box right here. I'm just going to put my finger on the back side of it. Until we get that bolt all the way out. So bolt's all the way out here. I am now going to be able to pull off this mount ring and set that off to the side. And this exposes the actual auger shaft. Now, again, depends on the make, model, and the year that the unit was manufactured. Sometimes we'll see a little bit of silicone right around here that we just want to slice that with a razor blade all the way around to break that seal. Sometimes the auger has a pressed fit right here where it's going to be really tough, which is the reason why I say it can be really handy to have a channel locks like this handy so we can physically grip onto the bearing and we can break this loose. Sometimes it is really tight. This particular one is fairly loose. I just was playing with it earlier, so we're just going to be able to pull this right out. So once you break the seal, there is no other bolts that are holding this into place. There's no gasket or anything like that in there, and this will pull out the full auger shaft. Again, with the Harman design here, the bearing is attached right to that auger shaft. Now, basically open that up. And it doesn't hurt once we have the auger out. Might as well do an inspection of the actual feed body right here and of that shaft as it goes in. Clean out any debris or any particles that are sitting in there before you go ahead and you install the new auger shaft. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this back in. Just like that. And you'll feel it kind of where it bottoms out right here. There's a lip where it's going to hit, and you'll see where that's nice and flush, okay? So I want to have that in the proper position. Again, with this one, in this particular mount bracket that holds that in place, same thing, that's going to have a hard stop right here. But we're going to kind of line that up to where those receivers are. And then again, with this particular earlier design, I do have to have my finger behind as I initially start threading that bolt. So something that's going to be important to check as you're initially looking at this and replacing this is whether or not kind of those female receivers are welded there, or whether or not they're loose, and you have to hold those with the back of your finger, because we don't want those to fall out. So I'm just going to snug that up with my finger a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. One thing that I will say, actually I am going to loosen this a little bit. You see how it cocked and kind of tweaked down there a little bit? We don't want that. It's really important that when we're putting this back on there that we're tightening that evenly. Tightening that evenly. As you can see, that mount is right on top of the bearing, and if it's cocked or at an angle, it can really create a problem. And last thing that we want to do is have to go back in there and disassemble to get it mounted right. So again, I'm just hand threading these with my fingers, like that. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and start tightening, but I'm just going to do a small amount at a time on either side. So I'm just going to do crank over here. We'll turn over here. We'll turn over here. Over there. Over there. And you'll see that it's holding level, and essentially that's what you're looking for. It's nice and even. Nice and level right there. And then we can go ahead and give them a nice little crank down. You don't have to really give it a whole lot, but we want them tight. So now that that's nice and tight in place, we'll go ahead and we'll put this, what I like to call a set collar with the bearing on it back in place. Again, bearing in. We're going to line up this bolt with the hole that's in the auger shaft. I'm going to just kind of start threading that by hand until I can feel that it's secured on there. Just like that, okay? Just like that. And then as we are putting that arm back over, just like that. We want that roller wheel to be right in the middle like that. Right where it was. Just like that. We'll leave this loose so we can put the auger motor back in there and again tighten that bolt right back down on that auger shaft. We can go ahead and we can make sure that the slide plate right here is connected to the swing arm. So again, there's just a small spacing in there. This is essentially how it's opening and closing as it's allowing fuel from the hopper down into the feed system. And as we showed in an earlier video, we'll make sure that we clean up any sawdust fines that have accumulated down there. But now that we have that back in place, that is the replacement of our auger shaft in a Harman, and kind of how this roller system works right here as that arm goes back and forth and opens that slide plate. But again, not all that common, but yeah, if you start hearing a whine, a high-pitched squeal, that kind of thing, every time that the unit feeds, we're starting to notice some inconsistency with the fuel feed, we definitely want to take a look at that auger shaft and make sure that you know, it's not coming from that bearing that's on there, and if it is, then that is something that we need to go ahead and get replaced. So that is the change out of an auger shaft in a Harman feed system. Any questions, comments, concerns, please leave a comment in the video here below. Always happy to help, and look forward to assisting you. Thanks again for tuning in to another session of Pellet Tech 101, and we'll see you soon.